Jim, please tell us your story.
I didn't make the book. I mean, there's a pole that goes on this in case you want to mount it in the middle of a yard or somewhere. But I'm hoping to mount this on most elementary schools that have been around them lately are surrounded by a chain link fence. So hopefully we can put this on a chain link fence post somewhere near the office. And the idea, Travis will cover why we need these later on, because he's talked to the ladies and men and women that run this. And this is for schools where the kids don't have access to libraries right now. So hopefully they'll put them somewhere near the main office where the kids can come up on their own, open the door, put a book in, take a book out, so they have access to libraries. And we won't be supporting the book exchange part of it, but our part is build these little libraries. And I think it's a great idea. I'm building 2 of them, and well, actually building 4 of them. One's going to go in front of my house, and one is going to go in front of my wife's sister's house in Point Loma. I think it's a great idea to have books that people can come by. You get to know your neighbors and the whole works. But the questions I have to you is, if you
before you go on, let me just finish fleshing out his story in terms of who we're partnering with and what is expected of us. We need to be able to build these things, but all the stuff that we're not good at, finding the sites, getting the permissions, stocking the books, publishing and popularizing the availability of these little free libraries. Those are all done by DEEP. I can't remember the meaning of the acronym, but they're a nonprofit that works with elementary schools in it's called the Diamond in Neighborhoods. It's basically east of downtown. And so we do what we do well, build these things, and they take care of all the stuff that we're not going to be able to take care of. And so they've got quite a few places lined up that we thought it was just 2. I know of at least 4 at this point that they want, and they haven't even begun to reach out into the surrounding neighborhoods where these schools, because they've been closed, they still want to have kids come to the schools, know that they can do books, make reading available, encourage reading programs, things like that. So that's the backdrop that Jim was alluding to. And so, Jim, you're about to transition to what you wanted to ask of them, right?
Yeah, what I want to know is if everybody's interested in building these, and I have like I said, this one particular book on little libraries. I'm going to leave it in the library. You can come look at it, make copies of the plans in here, build your own, or whether you want to do a group build where we gather materials and come in for a day and build these. Now, quite frankly, it's going to be a couple days to build these because there's a lot of work in here. And to get them sturdy enough, get them watertight enough, and work with it. So that's the kind of information I need from you guys. How much interest in it? You just want a set of plans and take it home and build it? That's fine.
If I could insert a bias.
Yeah.
I'm all really trying to get a community thing going here. And I have always enjoyed community builds. Years ago, Paul and Doug and I used to do things in groups of people to build things. I've done it in makerspaces previously. It's great for skill building. It's great for camaraderie. It's great for education. It's a lot of fun. And if you can, in addition, do some good, and in this case, it's definitely a good project for the community, then all the better. So to the extent that anybody wants to build one by themselves, fantastic. Jim actually, in his program that he's done elsewhere, that is to say previously, he allows people to make something of their own. The low profile workstation, people come in and they build their own using the designs and the materials that he supplies. And there's a cost associated with that. Let's say $100 for the materials or something like that. And so certainly we don't want to turn that off as an opportunity. But in general, we have, and I'll be mentioning this in writing sometime soon, we have already several examples of where recently we've been doing community service that's even beyond what most people are aware of. Mike McKelney has been doing a lot of things over the years, but he just did something for the Wellness Center of the police department. We have Perry Crutchfield, who just built a mobile book rack for the library, the Malcolm X Library on Euclid. Then we had a request the other day for these, and then Kurt is working along with several other people on this call on collapsible desks that can go into the homes of people who don't have places for their kids to regularly do their schoolwork while they're at home. So the flow is coming our way, and if we can make a little machine that allows us to do this on purposeful project after purposeful project, then we just end up doing a lot of good in the community and for ourselves. Any questions or opinions about that?
Travis, could you comment on how many this particular program wants us to build for the schools we know of? I think that speaks to maybe some consistency, at least for those. Again, if people want to put them in the front yards, right, they could do a totally custom one, but maybe for that number, we'd want to go with maybe a more consistent build like you were suggesting, among all the other reasons that it's, might
Yeah,
work well.
it's kind of an open-ended question because it started off with two, and frankly, we already have two, courtesy of Jim and his exploration into this. Then I learned that there were four from the person from the program, and then I heard secondhand that they were up to 9. So I honestly don't know, but the possibilities, even geographically, going to another neighborhood, other schools, etc., if we enjoyed it. This has all got to be about us having fun. This can't be a burden. But if we're enjoying it, we can always ramp it up. If we're not enjoying it, then maybe people just come in, they make their own. Don't know where we're going to land on this, but I just want to try out a community build. So for this, in this particular program, I would say another 4, Kurt, would be my guess right now. And I've already tempered their expectations by saying, I don't know whether this thing will take off or it won't. And it really depends upon that very factor, because we're not doing this to be burdened. We're doing this to have fun and grow skills and do some good. So yeah. I don't know how much beyond the 4 it will go, but that 4 I think is there.
If we, the community build sounds good to me. And if we all use the same design, that would certainly speed up making them. And as far as customization, each one of the elementary schools, in my experience, has colors. So you could paint it according to the school's colors, and then there would be a little bit of customization. But in terms of speed of construction, if we all use the same plans, you can knock out 10 roofs at one time.
I can't believe you actually said that, because that's exactly the thing that I was last told by the woman, Gina, who runs this program. She said that the principals had said that they wanted to have the similar colors to match the scheme of the school to make it feel more personal. So if it's down to spray painting the right colors, it's not that difficult, the customization. The real difficulty is getting Jim's phone to stop ringing.
Yeah. Not to get too elaborate on this thing, but we could also use either the CNC or the laser to put the school name or Little Free Library or something up in the pediment.
Yeah, Jim was just talking about that before we came up with this. Remember how you were saying you thought we should use, what did you call the CNC?
The buzz machine.
The buzz machine. This is not a man who uses CNC, okay? But the idea of putting the school's name in there with something permanent like CNC was something that came up. Also, I'd like for the people who contribute to any one of these bills to be somehow memorialized inside, not too blatantly, but to just know that if they took their family there and wanted to show that they were a part of it, they can open it up and look inside and show their name. I think that's kind of rewarding as well.
Okay, just one more thing. If we choose to do it, the day I normally have open is the first Tuesday of the month to do different things. In April, I think I'm still open for April. So and I'm only entitled to have 5 people there. And I would make the suggestion, if we came on in April and got enough material to put 2 of them together, we kind of party up, pair up, and groups of people build one. And it's going to be at least, well, we could probably get it assembled to a point where people can take it home and finish it. But it is a lot of work. And because
I want to ask about process on that, because the one thing that the shop has that we don't have at home is a big enough space for a group of people to have access to benches and to be able to do a lot in a little period of time. If, however, I was looking, Kurt, at the picture you sent of the sample folding desk. And I was looking at that and I said, wow, there are a lot of things that anybody could say, oh, I'll sign up for doing the plywood for the top and sides. And somebody else says, oh, I'll buy all the 2x4s and 1x2s to do all this and do all the cuts. Something like that you can see where this might break down similarly. And if this plan has, here, if you can see it, this is the plywood sheet right here. And so off of a plywood sheet, there was a bunch of cutting that needed to be done. And down below here were a bunch of, what are they typically here?
All these little pine.
What, are they 2x6s? And 4x4? Okay, so there are a bunch of other things that are just cut that are more long narrow stock. And just hypothetically, you could see where somebody signs up and says, oh, I'll do a sheet of ply, and somebody else says, oh, I'll do one for the long stock here. We get 4 people saying they'll do those 2 portions. All of a sudden, when you get together, you've got all the pieces that are needed, and you're able to go into more of assembly mode.
Well, if we agree to meet in April, then some of the cutting, that plywood will be cut out to a rough length.
Okay, great.
So we can assemble it pretty easily, so minimum cutting.
Yep.
Because if you get in a big group going in different directions, this will come back as a basketball. Yeah, I have enough experience in group builds that once this goes this way, that goes back way, and then you assemble them and it's a basketball. So
And if it's just stock.
it's just stock, yeah.
It's just
I'll get it rough cut it. So I have a pile over there, that's one of them. There's a pile over there, that's 2 of them. And there's a lot of this stuff that like this is a tin roof. I was gonna do shake shingles, but shake shingles aren't available anymore, other than for probably be $100 to do a shake roof on this thing. And, you know,
I assume, is that 3/4 ply?
it's just 3/4 exterior plywood. The next one I build, I might get R11 siding. It might look a little bit better, you know, like on the side of a barn. And
Could you talk really quickly about how you waterproof it?
waterproof, okay. All the this is exterior grade plywood, and inside, I see inside all the seams are sealed with silicone. There's a flat roof here. There's a peak roof, and then I sealed all the seams, painted the plywood underneath, put tar paper on it, tin roof, and use special screws. This little piece in the front, I silicone the front of it so the water doesn't get behind here. And I think the door is going to be all right. I put silicone on the bottom seam, but not the around here. And I think it's going to be all right. So, and the people that put this together have built lots of them. So,
Just one thing, knowing kids, we may want to think about a spring close on that, just to keep it closed, or a magnet maybe.
Good point. Because they'll just leave it hanging out.
I haven't put the magnet on. Actually, there's a story. My wife, when we looked at the picture, she liked this.
Hey guys, just so you know, many stories with him start off with my wife. Okay, just so you know.
So we went out, you can't see it here, but the stain. She said, I like that stain, go out and buy that color stain. So I did. And so I bought a gallon of stain, it's called rosewood. And when I put it on this, it was pink. So, she said, you got the wrong stain. I said, no, that's the one you chose. So I painted it blue. And I think painting it is a much better choice. And,
Yeah, I think a magnet closure is probably a good idea. Keeps the weather out, keeps it from accidentally staying open. Yep.
well, this little one here has what they call refrigerator latches on it. And I ordered them from back east, and they're on back order for like 3 months. And this is like $3. This refrigerator latch is like 16. And it actually hits it like a refrigerator, clips over, holds it closed. I don't know if we want to spend that kind of money for the hardware.
We can get one of our turners to make a couple of round knobs.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. And
Hey, if I could just comment on the build a design that previously existed versus building one that we come up with, which allows us to express ourselves creatively as a community. I think that I would love to start off walking before we run. There's so many pieces that we need to get right in terms of just how do you assign people to do the rough cuts? How do you organize the build process? How do you actually effectively get it finished afterwards? And then progressively add in more either volume if it's fun or creativity if it's fun. And so I was, to begin with, was wanting to jump right into, let's do a design competition. But I think I would personally prefer to at least get a couple of results out and get this
Yeah.
engine cranking a couple of times before we actually get too wild and crazy. So
Yep.
the fact that Jim went ahead with this makes sense. The fact that we might do a couple more along the same lines of this design, to me, makes sense. But I'd like to branch out and do more creativity if we end up deciding that that's a successful process and we want to keep going down that avenue.
From the schools, you know, like, well, we like this part, but we wish it was a little bit bigger, or it's, you know,
Right.
what they want.
Okay.
So I think what Julia, you said is that on the one hand, there is a design, but then there is, if I was in the private sector still, there's what the client wants. And maybe it's elementary school and they say, oh, we've got a lot of big books and we can't really just fit them inside of these shelves. That's an adjustment that we should therefore take into consideration. And I can see where small design changes, maybe even based on an existing model, would allow us
Yep.
to implement in the direction of doing the right thing for the schools. Julia, did I get your thought right there?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Shelf has got the
For those elementary school books, the tall ones, you could extend the sides, maybe or maybe not, but like you got there, an adjustable shelf will probably take care of most of that.
This
But
is
maybe
bigger
a
than-
couple of representative
This-
samples of the books we need.
Yeah, this book, this is bigger than you think it is. It will hold, according to the instructions, 32 books. So I had my wife who taught school, first grade for 28 years. She said it was sufficient. So
Okay. Well, that's
But
the
again,
authority.
well, and also this is where we're starting, right? I mean, if this thing goes well and we have fun, then we can make changes and solicit input before we design the next ones, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
But to begin with, if we could just get the machinery going to say maybe the first Tuesday in April, plus if we don't have all the stock done by you, you tell us what is needed. And then we have to figure out, for instance, we've got the funding. So how does the person get reimbursed if they go out and buy it? Or do we buy it centrally and get it to people? There are questions like this that just need to get worked out. And starting small allows us to figure that out. And so if we did the first Tuesday in April, and it was Jim's, what's your window again of time? Is it like 8 till noon?
it's going to be 8 till 2.
8 till 2. And frankly, maybe we do it in 2 shifts so that more people can be involved. So the first half and then the second half. And if in advance Jim tells us what we still need for wood, then we can figure out how to ask who among us would like to produce that in advance of the get together. Right?
Yeah, the first one in April, I will speak up and say, I will supply enough to do 2
Okay.
2 boxes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then it'll be rough cut into the general dimensions, and we'll pair up into 2 teams and work from there.
Sounds good.
Does the
Other
shop
thoughts and
have
comments?
a,
Because this is really the kickoff to not the idea now, but this is the kickoff to the actual doing. And so if you guys have comments or input, please go ahead and be vocal. I haven't heard from several of you still. Probably haven't heard from me because of the jets going overhead.
I was wondering, on the assembly, does the shop have nail guns? Or would that speed it up? I've got a
I'm just
couple of,
trying to think. All these things were put together with pin nails, and yeah, I'll bring whatever's necessary. I mean, this front piece here was Craig jigged together. The door is doweled together because I don't have one of those fancy, whatever they call them,
Dominoes.
dominoes. So if somebody wants to put a domino together, they can do that. So there's quite a bit of work. What I neat about this, it's a good project. You haven't used a Craig jig before, we'll show you how to use one. You haven't put together double dowels for the frame doors, we'll put you to work doing that.
Guys, I got to tell you, that's another thing that just comes from coming to the shop and working with Jim, is he's got so much woodworking experience and it's a chance to learn new things. I mean, I know about the Craig pedals, but I've never done it myself. And this would be an opportunity for me to do it, you know? and it's a woodworking growth experience. Other comments and thoughts?
Yeah, I was just
Nope,
gonna
sounds
say,
good.
could we have a meeting and look at the assembly and figure out where things might change? Because I could see that door being done on a CNC and possibly some of the other pieces of wood cut out within the waist in the middle, or instead, so that simplifies assembly.
Right.
Because now
It does.
there's,
And Doug, what I would suggest is what we do is we go through a build and then we regroup on the other side. Because
Yeah.
when it
One
comes
first.
to CNC, this guy's not a believer.
It's a buzz.
It's a buzz. We're all in a buzz if we use CNCs, sort of diluting. Hand tools are what life was created to do woodworking. You're supposed to do hand tools and power tools, not computer tools. But I take your point though, Doug.
Okay.
We learn by iterating, and yet we haven't even done the first one as a group. So on the other side of that, I think that's an excellent post-mortem to just figure out how we change what we did to maybe use less material, speed up production, make it stronger, whatever.
okay.
Okay, one final comment with me is my schedule's getting tight. Next Tuesday, I do the little workbenches. The following Tuesday, I do toys. And then we're going to move into here. So I don't know how many more meetings I can participate in,
Well, maybe we can even grow somebody in our community here to be a complement to Jim. We've talked in the past about how when it came to maintaining the tools, it was so much on his shoulders that it was too much. And we talked about growing other people. And so now we have a lot of people who are doing tool maintenance. Similarly, someone who wants to do what Jim would do on these Tuesdays could come and basically TA and then maybe take on the fourth Tuesday if that one's available, or a weekend day so that more people can participate. So let's just go through and take advantage of his offer and get a first iteration out, and then do the regrouping I was talking about and figure out what next.
Sounds good.
We're done.
Okay.
Can I ask people if there's anything else on that topic, please go ahead now, but I'd like to change topics real briefly to get your input on something. Okay, so we'll close off that and we'll move towards the event on the first Tuesday in April. When we finally come out of COVID and we are able to get together at the shop again for special interest groups, the notion that I'd like to explore is the notion of a hybrid event where you don't have to be here. You can, but you could participate remotely as well. And so I set up this laptop as a quick test of what it would be like. So in theory, we could have something like this, where the audience could see what was going on in the room and hear the speaker. I guess it would be more like this.
Yeah, I like your other screen. I keep looking at your other screen, which is a wider angle. So I like the fact you've got two. You've got presenter and the room.
Yeah, actually, let's switch to that for just a second, because I'd like to get your input on what you think of the angle and the elevation and things like that. I'm going to find Paul's camera, and I'm going to spotlight it so you guys can see.
Yeah, you kind of want the cooking show approach, right? One overhead and one in close.
Yeah.
Yep.
So could we turn that so we have landscape instead of portrait?
Yep.
Are we still doing this?
We transition topics if you want to.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so guys, what do you think about that? You can see, could you turn a little bit more over here? Try to get all of Jim in.
So I would tell you that if I want to participate in something, I'm really focused on the project. And if you got a shot that has 8 people in it, I'm not really concerned about the people. I'm concerned about what the project is. So maybe one that's a kind of a medium shot for the project, and then one that's handheld or even, yeah, one that's handheld to zoom in for details.
Okay, so what do you think about, right now we've got it in the back. And I'm gonna try to get it on the speaker as well as, so what about that?
Okay, again, interesting, but why am I interested in seeing 15 people?
Yeah, my guess is that there's probably going to be almost like what they do on the TV. There might be like 3 cameras. I would think that you would want one that's looking at the presenter and the project on that, like, yeah, more closely.
Yeah, like
Unfortunately,
that.
that's going to get in the way of people in the audience behind it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
Okay,
I'd say
so,
one shot like that.
Okay,
but
let me
you
just,
really
let me
need
just
to have
pretend.
one. Yeah, you really need to have one that is handheld to zoom in on details, because inevitably you want to show a joint or something like that. And
Right.
unless you have a head mounted camera, you're going to need a hand mounted one that you can move around.
oh,
Well,
and so
the
here
idea
you've
of
got
having a
a
phone,
you've got a
this one works great because we can get to this whiteboard, that whiteboard, you can see the display, you can see the
the-
speaker. What if
So,
we,
yeah, the TV. So there could be a handheld camera that's presented on the TV behind the presenter, and
right,
therefore they could zoom, and so you'd only need one focus, and to cover that multiple things, that would show the stuff to the audience in the room, and it would show on Zoom the remote.
agreed. So if we had, right now, what you're seeing is a laptop. You don't get quite as wide an angle there, but.
Yeah.
and
Needs
if
to be a
we
little bit
had-
wider.
Say again?
Needs to be a little bit wider. I think, make sure you can see both boards.
Yeah. Paul, let me do this.
At least share photos of that plan.
I gotta get,
Yeah, that's about right.
so I have to make,
Okay.
copyrighted plans.
Oh,
So
fair enough. I'll
another
get it
idea I
done.
had was if we had the back screen, let's see, if we had the back screen basically showing, what would we show back there? What did somebody say again? What we'd show on the back screen?
Well, the close-ups of a remote camera, a mobile camera. So
Yeah.
the
We just need
presenter would
another
have
iPhone.
a camera on, the USB or something
You just have
that
to switch.
they could then zoom in and look closely at the project that was being presented,
Yeah.
the build.
So, Doug, I'm afraid there's a white noise here. I guess the laser fans are on. Could you say it again?
Sure. I was going to say the idea would be to have the presenter with a mobile camera on a USB cable, or could be wireless, somehow getting a close-up views of the project.
Yeah, no, that's just like we do
Yeah.
for our SIGs, et cetera. So I agree with that.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to figure out that back screen, because when I'm presenting, I'm usually with a PowerPoint or something, Could you guys see the
Yeah.
screen?
Yeah, generally,
But you can
pretty well.
switch.
Okay, because that would allow us to use this laptop, this thing right here that you're on is the laptop from the 3D printer. If we had a spare phone that allowed us to do the close-ups you're talking about, Doug. And then lastly, the presenter had their own laptop, which they would be showing up on the screen. Then that might work. And I'm looking for just a general sense of that's worth a try, or I can improve upon that. What do you guys think about that scenario? Again, this laptop that you're seeing right here for the display up front, the display right there would be powered by someone's laptop and their PowerPoint or whatever. Then we'd have a spare camera that we could toggle back and forth from if we want to do close-ups.
Yeah,
Yep, sounds good.
as far as the cameras go and stuff, I can help you out with that. I have like 10 different cameras sitting in right next to me.
Yeah, I know.
If we figure out the views that we want, I
Yeah,
think we can figure out the technology to get those in
Yeah.
a convenient way.
yeah. Much
Yeah.
like the little free libraries, I'm trying to figure out what to start with that's adequate and then sort of build on it. And I think
Yeah.
Paul has suggested that you've got a phone that we can use for the close-ups, and I have my laptop for the display up front, and then this for you guys to be able to see both boards and the one in the center here.
Yep.
Okay, look, that was really helpful. It was a hypothetical up until just now, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to do that. Anything else before we end this thing?
I'd say if you want to do a demo sometime, let me know. A trial run of this type of scenario.
Yep.
Give it a shot, because I think that,
Okay.
just go through something that some small build project, and we'll go through and see how it works.
Yeah, we don't.
And if you want to,
Sorry.
and you want to call one of us and use this as an audience guinea pig.
Yeah, like you guys have been just now. So again, thank you very much. That's it for right now. We don't know when the shop will actually be opening up to allow for that. I just wanted to be thinking ahead of it, because I'll tell you, it's been strange. When we did our general meetings via Zoom, all of a sudden we had a different audience. I mean, a lot of the same, but we had different people who just never wanted to get in the car and go to a general meeting. I don't want to lose those people when all of a sudden we go back to in person. Similarly,
Good.
we have great special interest groups, but Susan Lively Clue is probably not going to come down here from Escondido all that often, you know? Similar with a whole bunch of other people who participated via Zoom. So I just want to make sure that we can get to a hybrid that works. And this test was a first. So thank you. I think from me, that's all there is. Anything else anybody else has before we wind this thing down?
Nope. Let's go. Let's do it.
Thank you very much, guys.